Hi, Shira7. I'm going to do Diaries of a Mortician, former Mortician, vlog 3 today. Okay, so I have 3 stories to tell y'all. One of the stories is, one is funny, one is interesting, and the other one is gory. So I'm going to save the gory for last. Okay, my first story is, I'm going to title it The Mistress and the Wife. Okay, so this man died, and he was probably in his 40s, maybe early 50s. And at his funeral, there were 2 sections, in the family section and then like the guest section. So the wife and the kids were up in the front, you know, next to the casket, mourning. And lo and behold, this man had a mistress and a side family as well. So the mistress comes to the funeral with her kids from this man. And the wife knows that the husband has cheated on her with this lady and has had kids and whatnot. So the mistress is on one side and the wife and her kids is on the other side. The funeral goes on, and then, you know, all of a sudden when it's time to, you know, bow your head and pray, everyone's heads are bowed and eyes closed, except, you know, the morticians, because we have to watch, you know, what's going on in the funeral. So we're standing in the back of the chapel of the funeral and we're watching everything. All of a sudden I see a shoe fly across the room and like hit the mistress. The wife took off her shoe and threw it at that lady. Oh my God. I was like, I was going to laugh, but you have to stay professional. So I had to fake sneeze and like cough. I had to go because I was going to bust out laughing. That was hilarious. If I could have had that, if they had YouTube back then, oh my gosh, that would have been gone viral. Anyway, so yes, then like after a few moments later, you know, they didn't say anything because what could they say? They were in shock. So when they call, like, whoever would like to speak on behalf of Mr. Such and Such, please come up now. So his brother got up to the little pulpit, and his speech about his brother began like this: I know such and such wasn't the best husband in the world, but he was a good man. He took care of all his children. And this guy was, he had been drinking, obviously. The people in the chapel were like, oh, is he really saying this? And then like the minister cued the organist to start playing music over his speech to, you know, get him off the stage. So that was one of the funniest funerals I have ever attended. Well, yeah, one of them. Okay, so that was my story on that one. Okay, this other story is interesting. Okay, there was a lady, you know, she was like a principal or administrator or something at a private school. I can't remember. Maybe it was a public school. I don't remember. But she worked at a school, and she was like handling money. So she started embezzling money, and she got caught, and she was like waiting for her trial and all that kind of good stuff to occur, because she got fired from her job, obviously. But then she died, and she came to the funeral home that I worked at. She was a very pretty lady. She was like in her maybe mid 30s or early 40s. And I was like, she looks familiar. You know, she looks familiar. She had been on the news for embezzling money out of a school or whatever, and she had got caught up on all this legal matter because she stole a lot of money. So I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, shoot. I looked on her death certificate, and it said that she had cancer, like terminal cancer. So this lady knew she was going to die because she had terminal cancer. She knew she was going to die, so she stole all this money and probably went and bought everything she ever wanted to buy. She probably went on vacation. She probably bought the best of everything. She probably lived it up on the expense of her job. Because she knew she was going to die. She was like, oh, I'm going to die in like 3 months. What can I do? So what does she do? She steals all of that money and goes shopping. She has Versace. She has like everything. Chanel, red bottoms, all of that. Okay? On a salary of someone that works at a school. So she knew if she did get busted, she wasn't going to live long enough to serve a sentence of jail, or prison. So she went ahead and did what she had to do. That was her bucket list. If you're dying of terminal cancer and you work at a job around thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're gonna die anyway, what would you do? Okay, so I don't know if would I do the same. I don't know. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't judge her. I don't judge her, because if you're dying, you're going through the stages of grief, and you're not in your right mind. You're just, I only got 2 months left to live. Now, what would I do? I've always wanted to just go spin, spin, spin. So let me go do that. So, a lot of times when people die, the family will bring you their clothes and their makeup to do your makeup, to do their makeup for the funeral. This lady had obviously spent thousands of dollars on her makeup, because everything in there was name brand, like top of the line makeup. I was thinking about taking her. No, I was kidding. So she had like all Chanel, all MAC, everything, and she had a lot of it. So I knew she was spending money, and all her clothes were like super top of the line, like designer, couture. So I knew what she did, and I don't think I can blame her. Okay, so that was one story. Okay, my last story is a morbid one. It's kind of gross, and it has to do with embalming. So if you don't like this part of the funeral industry, click off now, because it's gonna get gross. Okay. So I was working at this one funeral home, the one I told you about in the earlier vlog, the dude that smoked marijuana, the funeral director that smoked marijuana. Okay, so I'm still a student at this point, but I'm working there as well after school. A student at Mortuary College, so I'm working there after school. And this dude is like, hey, I have to go, but there's a body down there that needs to be embalmed. And by law, a student can't embalm a body unless they're accompanied by a licensed funeral director or mortician. So he didn't care, because he breaks laws and rules all the time. So he said, okay, I'll be back in like a few hours, be done. So I'm saying, okay. I didn't look at the body first, I just agreed. I get down there to that body, and it's a halfway decapitated man. Okay, like half his neck has been slashed, and he's like bobbing off. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And he had been autopsied, which means his scalp is cut like on the top of his head, like this, and his face was like half pulled off, and his chest was like all open. And I'm still a student at this point, right? I don't know everything. So I'm like, what the heck? So I call him. I say, this guy's been like halfway decapitated. What do you want me to do? So he instructs me on how to sew up dude's neck on the phone. So I'm on the phone. They didn't have speakerphone back then. So I'm on the phone like this. Like Igor. Trying to sew up this guy's neck. And so I'm down there for 4 hours just sewing and sewing and sewing. I feel like I'm making a quilt, okay? So it's like, I finished the job, of course, because I'm great. And he comes back to check my work. He goes, "Oh, you're pretty good. You're pretty good. I didn't think you were gonna pull it off. I said this was a test. This was a test. This wasn't no test. You was just lazy." Okay. Anyway, so I got to see what it looked like when someone was like halfway decapitated. There was like all this stuff, man. It was cool. It was like, it's surreal. Like when you see a dead body, it's not, it's surreal. It's like, that's one of the main reasons I don't eat red meat anymore. I stopped eating red meat in 1999, which is when I started embalming, because human flesh and meat looks identical to beef and some parts of pork. So that's why I don't eat it. Like when they were doing autopsies, they would like cut the rib plate off and like set them on the side of the body. It looks just like a slab of barbecue ribs before you know, grill them. So, or smoke them or whatever you do. So when I saw that, I'm like, I'm never eating ribs again. I'm never. And then like when you see the human body cut up and it starts to look like meat that you buy in the grocery store, you start thinking twice about what you're really eating. So I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want that. And you know, it helped me a lot. I lost a lot of weight when I stopped eating red meat. Yep. But so that was one of my grosser stories. I have a really, really gross one I'm gonna save for later. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Diaries of a Former Mortician. And if you have any questions, I think I'm going to do a question and answer episode about the funeral industry, you know, my time, you know, working in a funeral home. So if y'all have any questions, please, please, please ask me, because I will answer them in detail. So go ahead, feel free. Anyway, I have a lot of stories. I mean, that's why it's called Diaries, because I have a lot. And I'm not going to give them all to you at once because it's a lot. Anyway, so if you enjoyed this vlog, please subscribe and share. And if you have some morbid friends who like hearing about stuff like this, you know, paste it on their page, you know. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.